It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome a former standout from the football world. He played his college ball at the University of Virginia, where he won the Jacobs Trophy in 1990 and 1991 as the ACC's top blocker. He was drafted 10th overall by the Seattle Seahawks in the 1992 NFL Draft. After 4 seasons in Seattle, he finished his career with the Detroit Lions. After a few high school coaching stints, he returned to his alma mater of Virginia in 2011 to become the Director of Life Skills for the Cavaliers football program. Today, he lends his time to the Special Olympics, where he currently works. It's Ray Roberts. He joins this live stream of Listen In with KNN right now. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Hello, everyone. Happy Football Saturday. Thanks so much for tuning in, as always, to another live stream edition of Listen In with KNN, sports talk radio show and podcast right here on our home, Fox Sports Radio, 96.9 FM and 1340 AM with me, your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. Now, look, we're in for a great weekend. Lots of football going on, but also lots going on off the football field. And we also always talk about athletes being more than just athletes and talking about life after football. So to help me tell that story, I welcomed in one of the greats, all right? We're talking about one of the most decorated and dominant offensive linemen in the history of Virginia football for all of those in the DMV area here. And also, in addition to being a collegiate star, also a former NFL player. And today he serves as the director for Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools and the Urban Program Development. So if you don't know who I'm talking about yet, or if you haven't guessed yet, he is none other than Ray Roberts. And I'm welcoming him to the show right now, live on Listen In. Ray, how are you today? Thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, well, thanks for that great introduction, and also for taking me back to my college days in the go-go, the DC go-go music. I was backstage getting my groove on.
It makes me happy, Ray. And I know you did a lot of go-go dancing, right? When you were
absolutely. Like, I had, grown up in North Carolina, had never heard of it before, and met this young lady at UVA, Sherry LeMay from DC, and she turned me on to it. And I mean, I listened to it probably on my way to the Seahawks games every Sunday. I listened to at least one song.
Stop. Okay, so what song did your teammates resonate most with? Did you get to teach your Seahawks teammates about the DC music scene?
No, they weren't grunge rock and all that stuff was kicking off out here at the time, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all that stuff, and so it was just kind of hard to find a spot to get in there. But I'm rocking out to some old school like Chuck Brown all the time, and Northeast Groovers, those.
You really know it, Ray. All right, we got to get back to the DC area, Ray. We got to get back acclimated because we still have fun with our go-go music scene out here, Ray. But I'm glad to hear that. I'm curious, following up on that, when you first heard go-go music, what was your first thought? When you first get to UVA's campus, Sherry's like, Ray, you've got to listen. Do you remember your first go-go song? I'm so curious to hear this answer.
Man, I don't remember the first song. I just remember going like, what is this? Like, I didn't, I had never heard anything like it before. And then honestly, wasn't like really down with it at first, but hanging out with Sherry, the more I hung out with Sherry, I just had to listen to it. Like that's all that was playing. And then at UVA, we had a couple go-go bands that popped up, you know, around campus and around the city that would play different shows. And then actually, one of the bands, like they just always like goofed around, and so they'd be like, "Hey Ray, like come stand on the stage and be our bodyguard or something." So I would just stand up there like I'm doing something, you know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of how I got, you know, acclimated to it, and then I just love it. There's so much energy in it, and I mean, any song you can make a go-go song.
You really can. You really can.
It doesn't matter behind it. It doesn't matter what it is, you know. And so you just kind of get that go-go beat and sound going with it, and then you have something totally different.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that makes me happy. So basically the DMV can take all credit for what you did in Seattle, because it was the go-go music that got you going. So all those accolades we'll keep for ourselves, Ray. I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm excited to talk with you. I like to do a wellness check with my guests first, Ray. How are you feeling? How are you doing? It seems like life is good because you were dancing backstage. I see the smile, and I love how you describe yourself on Twitter. Your first thing says all pro dad. I thought that was like the best thing ever. You definitely obviously enjoy being a father.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's like out of all the things I've done in my life, it's like my number one mission and purpose in life is, you know, like, you know, you can minister to a lot of people outside your home, but your first ministry is in your home. And so I just try to be the best parent I can be, try to be there for for my kids, give them space. You know, I'm not a helicopter dad. My kids all play sports, but I'm not the dude that's beating the coach's door down and all that kind of stuff. You know, my son, I have a junior in high school right now that's playing high school football, and you know, had a tough game last night, but you know, I just didn't like get right in his face and like, come on, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's like, no, I'll just wait for him to come to me, and
that's great.
We'll have the call, because I don't want him to feel that type of pressure. And so I just really enjoy being a dad. I just, you know, I even have like, I'll call my kids and say, hey, we have to have a family meeting. And they're like, oh man, they know what it is. We're going to sit down at the table. And then I let them tell me what's going on in their lives. And then how can I be a better dad? And I take the criticism and the praise all the same. And then I try to make the changes I need to make so that I can, you know, show up for them the best I can.
That's huge. And, you know, I think we all parent differently, but it seems like it's working for you, right? You have 3 lovely kids. And I'm just curious, from how you grew up, like what lessons did you take from your parents, would you say, that you implement today as a father figure for your kids?
Well, the one thing is that, you know, no matter what happens in our family, I had a chaotic family, grew up really, you know, tough, and, you know, youngest of 4, 3 older sisters. My mom and dad were alcoholics, and my sisters were, 2 of my sisters were in and out of jail and all the time. But family was the thread through all of that. Right. And so it was a tie that binds. And so, you know, it's the whole thing, like we can say what we want to say about our family, but nobody else can. You know what I'm saying?
Don't talk about my family.
It's because you're going to get that Roberts family thing coming at you if you're coming down like that. So, and then my dad was just, always supportive of me, and then, you know, came to all my events, whether it's football, basketball, whatever I was doing. And then my dad worked. My dad was a master of, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. And so when I retired from the NFL, I just remember thinking like, man, I got to show my kids that people get up and go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they come home at 5 or 6 in the evening. Yeah. And so that's after a year sitting around doing nothing, I said, you know what, I need to model this to my kids. And so that's what I started doing. And so even my kids today, like when they're in college, they work their way, you know, through college. My 2 older sons right now have 2 and 3 kids. Like they just, you know,
you're proud dad, Ray. Awesome.
So that's, you know, those types of things, you know, I try to model. And then the other part is that, you know, my dad was kind to everybody. We had nothing, and my dad would give you all the nothing that we had. And so I try to, you know, live my life the same way and pass that on to my kids. So we're very involved in the community, and, you know, working with children, young people, people that are less fortunate than we are, like those types of things. Like my kids are very mindful of those types of things and that type of work.
That's huge. And again, I can just see the joy and smile and the glow on your face as you're talking about them and as you light up. So great job. And I feel like we need to give dads more love. So props to you, Ray, for being an amazing father, in addition to all of the other great things that you do. Make sure your kids know that they're lucky to have you. Now, I want to keep talking about your background, but Kyle Wegner, one of our loyal listeners, already wants to know about football, Ray. You're on the show. He thought football. He already wants to know, how do you like the Green Bay Packers? I was going to wait to let him ask you now, Ray. People can't wait for tomorrow.
Well, as it relates to the Green Bay Packers, I will say this. I like Aaron Rodgers and I liked Brett Favre back in the day. Playing with Detroit is kind of hard to say that you like the Packers, but I can find an individual player that I like. And because Brett was just a tough dude, and you just always felt like as an offensive lineman, it'd be a great dude to block for. And then Aaron Rodgers is just so gifted and talented. But if you're talking about the Green Bay Packers as they are today, I think they're going to be fine. That first game, coming out the box, I don't know what happened. That was just an anomaly. But what you saw last week is going to be more probably what you see from the Packers. The defense may be a little bit suspect, but you have to deal with Aaron Rodgers, and that's a lot to deal with. And Adams and the running back they have in the backfield. So it's I like their team on offense especially, and obviously I love Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah. We all love Aaron Rodgers, even though, right, people are questioning. They're like, does Aaron really want to be there? Have you questioned? Are you saying, look, it was just week 1. Everybody's entitled to a bad game. Calm down. Are you on the hype train that, like, Aaron's just like, you know what, Evan, I'm just going to go. We'll see what happens.
I will say the thing with Aaron that I'm not down with is the long hair dude bun.
Yeah, with the long hair, right? I feel like it's a new era of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that style is already played. Like he's so far behind with that. You know what I'm saying? But I think Aaron and everything that he's ever done, when he says it, like he tends to back it up. So when he says that he is bought in and he's all in, and that first game is just what it was, and that he's not that he's all in for this team. Then I believe him. When he told us, when he spelled out the word relax, you know what I'm saying? Like, I believed him because then he relaxed, everyone relaxed, and they made it to the NFC Championship game. So so when he says it, I tend to believe what he says. And he says that he's all bought in. And it's really hard. Like, the locker room does not lie. Rasheed Wallace started the whole thing in NBA, like, the ball doesn't lie,
Right.
And so the locker room doesn't lie either. And so if Aaron wasn't bought in, you would start to hear rumblings from the locker room, because you can't fake yourself in the locker room. Your people see through all your games and your all the false faces that you put on and those types of things. And so it's just kind of hard to fake out the locker room.
Yes, you got to come correct. All right, y'all. Y'all heard it right here. Ray Roberts said, calm down. It's okay. And even as a line, he can say he does like, Aaron Rodgers and what the Green Bay Packers are doing. All right. So if you can't tell, Kyle lives in Green Bay. All right. So Kyle faithful.
That's fun. Not a whole lot going on in Green Bay.
All right, so transitioning back to you, we're going to talk about just your life and what you're doing. And one thing I love about you that you put on Twitter, you have Big Ray's Garage Grind, right? And I love the last one that you put up, So Many Nuggets edition. And you put this quote up from a book, The Promises of Giants. Being physically, mentally, and emotionally beaten down, or, quote, so busy, are not requirements or prerequisites for your success. To the contrary, they're detrimental to it. Self-care, frequent breaks, restoration, and recovery essential. First of all, I needed that message. I needed that message. Let's talk about this and your positive affirmations and what you're learning from this book and what you're hoping your Twitter followers will gain from this.
No, I try to give people a different perspective on things. And then when I find stuff that tends to validate how I think about life and going about and achieving and leading and stuff, I try to amplify that. And so The Promises of Giants is written by John Amici, who was actually like a NBA basketball player, played for maybe 10 or 12 years. And now he's like a well-renowned psychologist and expert on this leadership and achievement. And so, in our culture, this whole idea that you have to be, outworking and the other person, and it's not about working smart, it's about working harder. And so you grind yourself to a grind. People don't take vacations. People don't take time to do things that recharge them. And like, restoration and recovery isn't about like sitting around and laying on the couch. That could be part of it, but it also includes like reading for leisure, going for a walk, going on a vacation, listening to great music, spending time with great friends, like stuff like that. All those types of things are the things that refresh and recharge us, so that then when we do show up at our work or what we're doing, that we're bringing our full, energized, focused selves to it. Otherwise, we're depleting ourselves of all of that energy that it takes. So if you think of an athlete, one reason that we have Tuesdays off in the NFL is so that you can have some rest and recovery. And then that way you come back on Wednesday and Thursday, obviously like your body's beaten down half
of course,
into the season. But the idea is that you get to recover, so that when you come back, you're and so that same concept is applied to life in general and work or what it is that you do that drives you every day.
Facts. I mean, facts that anybody can take to the bank and just kind of implement into your everyday life. I thought that was so great that you put it out there. If you guys are listening, again, you need that rest and recovery, but, exercise your mind, do things for your health, your mind, body, and spirit. And so we appreciate those nuggets. I even like the hashtag that you put with it. And go ahead.
That started like during the pandemic. My son didn't have anywhere to work out because, we couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
So at the garage, we have weights and tires and
everything.
So we just started working out in there, and I'm just like, dude, this is going to be our grind right here. And then that's how it just kicked off, like this Big Ray's Garage grind. And then I just turned it into my little Twitter posts and things. And so it tends to work for me.
It works for me too. All right, I'm gonna take nuggets every time I can get them, right? So every time I see them on the timeline, taking my notes.
Awesome.
And transitioning back to your childhood, and I appreciate you touching on that, but I always like to start at the beginning because I think it helps to shape who you are and who you became as a man. And I want to talk about Asheville, North Carolina. So I did live in Charlotte, all right? So I know usually when I have people from North Carolina, to Raleigh, Durham, or those type of cities,
right.
Is beautiful. I don't know if people have been to Asheville, but I think it's just beautiful. Like it's postcard, I feel like, to me, like postcard beautiful. But let's talk about growing up there and kind of how you fell in love with football.
Yeah. So, Asheville today is not what Asheville was when I was growing up. I was born in 1969. So it was in the 70s and 80s. And so it wasn't always the kind of like happy-go-lucky, hippie, artsy kind of place. And so there's a lot of racial tension, honestly. Like I can remember as a kid seeing like we would have a Christmas parade like around Thanksgiving or so. And then the very next week, there'd be a Klan march, and so I've seen like that type of stuff. And so, I kind of grew up in like, I wouldn't say it was super tense, but like the neighborhood I grew up in was in the middle of like this middle-class white neighborhood, and we're probably like a lower middle class to poor neighborhood, and so we fought a lot. Like I fought dudes that I went to school with, but I've always been a dude that like gets along with everybody. You can drop me in the middle of I don't care where, and I'm going to find a conversation.
You're going to make a friend.
And so sometimes I had to fight dudes that were my friends that I would go to their house for dinner when I didn't have food, like stuff like that. But because of the racial tension and stuff, you just had to do what you had to do. But I just never let that really deter me from building friends and getting to know people for individually who they are. I think sometimes in our culture we group people together too much, and we don't accept people for the individuals that they are. So they're either baby boomers, or they're white, or they're black, or they're or they're Republican or Democrat, or whatever all this is. And so then you never get to know the individual. And sometimes you get to know the individual, you find the common ground where you can disagree with each other, but still move forward together. And so that's what, like, that came from my upbringing, like just being able to navigate all of that was going on
so early.
And still being able to find a way. And then the way I kind of fell in love with football was that there's just a lot going on in my house. And so it was just hard to get any kind of real like affirmation or figure out how to deal with all the emotions that were going on in your body. So I go to these football games, and my cousin is scoring all these touchdowns and things, and they're patting him on the back, giving him hugs and all this stuff. And so then I'm thinking, I'm honest to God, like I'm 5 or 6 years old, and I'm thinking like, wow, like you can go and hit people really hard. They pat you on the back.
Right, you get praised for it.
They tell you great job. If I do that up at the park, I'm getting in trouble. I don't want to go to the park. My dad's going to get mad at me, like all these different kinds of things. And so when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I would stand beside the coach and like tug on his shirt, like, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play, because I just wanted to play football. And then it just became an outlet to just unleash all of this stuff. As a kid, I didn't have the tools to know how to deal with the frustration or the anger or the insecurity or the fear or all those types of things. But this is a place I could go and just kind of let it all out. And then when I was, funny story, I know I get long-winded, but funny story, when I was in like about 10th grade, I started getting all these letters about playing college football.
Wow.
And so I went to my coach and was like, hey, like these people want me to come play college football. We can't even afford like a meal every day.
College.
No way I'm afford college. And he goes, well, Ray, bring me the letters. And so I took the letters to the coach. He goes, Ray, they want to pay for college. I'm like, what? I'm like, what does that mean? And so I went to my dad and was like, Dad, like I have these letters. They're going to pay for my college. And my dad's like, nah, bro. That's not how it works. He's like, that bill is going to come one day.
Too good to be true.
We ain't going to be able to pay it, you know? And so I was just like, well, you need to talk to the coach because he's telling me that we don't have to pay for anything. And so that's kind of how I got introduced to recruiting and scholarships and finding an opportunity to go to college and all those types of things. And so football just became a catalyst for me to really like find out who I am, figure my pathway to a better life, and then find some security in for my my family and my kids.
That's huge. Like you say, I mean, that football scholarship can make a difference. It's for some people the first time, they become the first in their family, right? To get to go to college, and that feeling. And then also, you're not only going to play football for them. Hopefully, you're going to work towards that degree, right? To your point, after football, you might go back to that kind of normal lifestyle, right? Where you're in an everyday job and you want something to fall back on because, right, many of us want to be Tom Brady and play forever, but even he's going to have an ending point, right? And so it's always having that plan, and to go from not sure what you want to do to like tugging on your coach's shirt to want to play football to now people are writing you, Ray Roberts, to come play football for their school. Talk about life coming full circle, right? And just like offering you something that you didn't even see, and for your parents to not have to go in their pocket. Well, maybe for lunch or something if Ray called home, but to not have to go in their pockets and have to try to scram and write this big check. That's huge. That's huge.
I don't think people really understand sometimes the opportunity, especially nowadays with social media, and they look at kids and think that kids are being selfish or just like centered on themselves. And sometimes like that's what it took to get to where you are.
The next level.
So like sometimes you have to, like at an early age, you have to become a man really, really quickly. And so you learn really quick, like how to look out for yourself, how to make a way for yourself. And then what your hope is that once I get over that fence, then I can help other people get over the fence. And so I think some people miss some of that when you see the kids like transferring or different things. Like they want to think that transferring is some weakness, but sometimes you're embracing adversity and being bold by betting on yourself and then picking up and leaving somewhere where you've been comfortable and have friendship group and all that and going to a totally new place. And that's not weakness. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely has like that outhouse to the White House feel to it. But it wasn't easy. It was, I had my pitfalls and things like that. But knowing that my dad and my mom, even through all of the chaos and whatever, trusted me and I trusted them to have my back, that was probably more important than just about anything else.
That's huge. And I think you touched on just so many great points. I saw you tweet about the transferring thing. I think you're right. I think from the outside looking in, people are like, well, why aren't they just happy? It seems like they have the world. And again, that's social media with their view of what's going on. But only you know yourself. And bet on yourself. Those are the 3 words. Every time people ask me for advice, you have to bet on yourself.
Absolutely.
If you don't bet on yourself, how was anybody else going to bet on you or take a chance on you, right? So it starts within. And I think you're right. When people are transferring, you have to find the best situation for you. Sometimes you go to that first school or college, or maybe it's your major. I was one of those people that switched majors in college, or I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be talking right now in an office as a psychologist. I changed my mind and didn't become that, but it's okay, right? Like life happens, you go through things, and you have to just find the best situation for you. And I think we're seeing more transfers. Maybe now it's more kind of visible because of COVID. But again, if you don't know if you haven't walked a day in that person's shoes, who are you to tell them what's
absolutely that? Well, when I went to Virginia, I went there as a defensive end. I was 6'5" and about 250 pounds. Yeah. And so every school that recruited me as a defensive end. And then after my first year, everyone else knew but me. They were like, hey man, we heard they moving you to offense. I'm like, nah, they're not moving me to offense. Like, I'm gonna be like the next Bruce Smith around this month. You know what I'm saying? Like I can get after the quarterback. And then they told me that they were moving me to offense, and I wanted to transfer. Like, because you told me I was gonna play defense, and so I don't want to play offense.
Right.
And somehow my dad got word, and this is before social media, and we didn't have cell phones and all that. And then one day I went back to my dorm, and in the parking lot I saw this gold 1969 Grand Prix with and I'm like, man, what is my dad doing here? And so I walk in. He goes, boy, someone told me you're trying to leave the school. I'm like, and I just started crying. Like, Dad, they told me I could play defense. Now they moved me to offense. I don't want to play offense. It's for like, fat, unathletic dudes and like all this stuff. I can dunk a basketball. I can go play for the UVA. They asked me to play basketball at UVA when I first got there. I'm like, I can play basketball if I want to. And he said, no, you're going to stay. I just have a feeling if you just do what they say here, you'll be fine. And so I couldn't say anything after that. My dad had put his foot down.
There's nothing else for you to say, yes, sir.
And so then I said, okay, well, then I'll just like roll all my goals over to, what it means to be a great offensive lineman, and was able to do that. And then, but I did want to leave because they broke the contract. You know what I'm saying?
Not what they put on that paper at first.
Exactly. And so, people to me will say like, going to your scholarship and playing college football is like this privilege. It's like, I guess you can say that, but I earned it.
Right. Like, you work for it. They don't just give it to you.
Yeah. And to me, it's a contract. I'm saying I'm going to come to your school and this is what I'm going to do. And you're saying by doing that, this is what we're going to provide. And so it's more of a contract and less of a privilege. You know what I'm saying? Because a privilege means that you're kind of guided without, just out of favor.
Right.
And but there's a lot of parties I didn't go to in high school. There's a lot of nights I had to spend like, doing homework. There's a lot of hills I ran that other people didn't run. Like, there's a lot of discipline that I had to do. And then on top of that, you had to perform at a level that would get your attention.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not like I just woke up one day and they said, hey, dude, like, you're just a great guy. Here's this scholarship.
Here you go.
Yeah, no, they're like, dude, you can help us. So like, we're going to help you by you helping us. So to me, it's more of a contract, less of a privilege.
That's what it is, because that's what you're doing as a collegiate athlete, right? I mean, you're helping them hopefully win football games, making their program better, but you're also bringing in what? That money for that program or school, right? So they're paying for you, but you're also paying them in a larger way. And we know at many schools, football brings in a lot of the dollars, right, for athletics. And so I think you're right. It's that contract. And I think social media kind of makes it seem like, I think sometimes for people that weren't athletes, they're like, oh, they just get everything and everything. Yeah. No, y'all are putting in a lot of work and a lot of hours. And this is why, right, I like to be a broadcaster, to tell these stories, because I think these are the stories that need to be told that sometimes aren't understood. So I'm glad that you touched on that. Like you said, you had to miss parties. Hey, when Asheville High School was having these fun parties, Ray Roberts was in the house studying, getting work done, making sure he was not getting in trouble. All right. And also, I mean, just think about your dad telling you that, and kind of the rest is history, because we know how your football career went. But if he didn't come in, do you ever think about that? Like if your dad hadn't come in the room that day and you had transferred, maybe how your life would be different?
I think about that all the time. And I also think about just the insight that Coach Welsh at UVA had at the time, the head football coach, that he just saw something different in me on that side of the ball. Like, I think he thought I could have been a productive defensive end, but he thought I could be an All-American left tackle. And so I didn't see that in myself, and I didn't see that as a future. I didn't see the left tackle being like this future athletic, important part of it's just another big dude that I had to get around to get a sack, and so, but Coach Welsh and others saw beyond that to where the position was going. And so I just decided, okay, well then I'm just going to be the best offensive lineman Virginia has ever seen. And in the process of that, I was, able to be one of the better offensive linemen in the history of the ACC. And so enjoyed.
So humbly, Ray. I mean, if y'all look up his stats, this man has award after award after award after award.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of fun, and I did it with a lot of great dudes. So like a lot of the guys from our team, Sean Moore, the quarterback, who was like, too bad he can't play in today's game, because he was every bit, maybe not as fast as, Lamar Jackson, but every bit the leader that Russell Wilson is, every bit the runner and effective passer and things like that. And but we have a group of probably like 20 or 30 of us from that time period that we text each other probably at least once a week. Wow. And so it's a really tight group. It was a good group. I had verbally committed to Tennessee, and then I took a trip to Virginia, and I was just like, Dad, like my personality just fits better here. Like it just, my dad was like, wait a minute, we're just at Tennessee Auburn game, and you just watched Virginia lose to William and Mary. And I was like, I'm like, yeah, but Dad, like the dudes there just kind of fit my personality better. Like I just feel more comfortable around them. And so I switched my commitment and went to Virginia. But no, I had a great time. I played with a bunch of great dudes: Terry Kirby, Chris Slade, I named my middle son is named after Chris Slade. His name is Slade.
Wow, yeah.
And so just played with some great dudes, man, and had a great time, great coaches. My time at UVA was cool. A lot of cool things that were happening in and around campus and all those types of things. So just really enjoyed it, man. Wouldn't have not been able to do it without some of the dudes I even practice against. I get messages all the time like, man, Ray used to kill me in practice. I'm like, yeah, but if I wasn't killing you, I wouldn't be as good.
You have to practice on someone. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So here's a gift certificate to
with love, from Ray.
Exactly.
And again, just talking about your football career, and also, I'm sorry, you talked about that first game that you saw Virginia lose. Also, apologies, by the way. I saw that latest football game to Wake Forest. Right? Have you gotten over it? I'm sorry. I know you were expecting a better outcome for those that did not see it. 37-17, Wake Forest on top of Virginia. So, look, a moment of silence for UVA. Right?
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Right? I'm sorry. I was like, oh, and I have him on the show tomorrow. I wanted to bring him good luck, Ray. Well, you were in days with UVA football, as we're talking.
Yeah, there's good days to come. It's a program that, when Bronco took over the program, I think we were 2-10 when he took over, and in 4 years they've won the Coastal Division. But there's still a lot of room to, it's hard to get, the recruiting there is tough. It's a tough academic school, and right. They don't really give you a whole lot of leeway to bring in kids that may need a little extra help, but can make it. So. But there's still ways to go, for the program to be where we want it to be. And I will criticize coaching and administration and all that stuff at times, but I will never criticize the players. They work. I just know how hard they're working. They're not making mistakes or not winning on purpose, and they're playing super hard. They're great kids. I send video messages to the offensive line every single week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so just to encourage them. Keep their spirits up, give them life lessons off the field, all those types of things. That's my way of giving back to the program. And so I'm Virginia orange and blue through and through. So I take every loss. It takes me a good
you feel it
48 hours.
Every loss. It's personal, right? It's personal. Yes, it's personal for me.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I thought about that. I was like, man, I wanted to bring you better luck, Ray. Just know that. I was wishing.
Next time.
Next time, I'll be a good luck charm for UVA. Even as a Terp, all right? I could say that.
I wasn't going to bring that up. But, people don't understand that.
Look right now. Look, we're masking right now. I'm wearing my Maryland gear with pride around the DMV right now, Ray. I'm like, what you got to say now? Maryland football team.
Well, people don't realize the rivalry between Virginia and Maryland. You always think of Virginia and Virginia Tech or Virginia and North Carolina, but the Virginia and Maryland rivalry is a huge one.
It's real.
And when Maryland was in ACC, football, basketball, soccer, baseball, track, lacrosse, field hockey, whatever it is, we're trying to get that win against the Maryland Terrapins. And so that rivalry was not taken lightly at all.
Oh, no. Let me tell you, we missed the ACC battles. I know we're in the Big Ten now, but anybody was at Maryland. And Ray, I was at Maryland at an interesting time because I was there when Maryland switched conference. So to grow up in the area, going to Maryland games and knowing those rivalries and then switch over. But let me tell you, we still take pride, Ray. So don't ever forget that. But this proves that Terps can be nice. All right. So that's the biggest lesson.
We can get along.
The show.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can get along, at least for the show. We'll get along, right? All right. And speaking again, just staying on your football career, also, I want to talk about the number 72, right? Because you had admiration for someone, and I'll shout out the Dallas Cowboys fans. You wore 72, right? For former Dallas Cowboys great Ed Too Tall Jones. Let's talk about when the admiration for him started.
Yes. So when I was a kid growing up in North Carolina, there were no, we didn't have the Carolina Panthers.
Right. Not yet. Yeah.
And so you had to find a team. And I fell in love with the Dallas Cowboys and Tony Dorsett and Roger Staubach and Ed Too Tall Jones and Harvey Martin and Drew Pearson and Robert Newhouse. And I can name all of them. And, and so I was always a taller kid. And so when I saw that Ed Too Tall Jones was so tall and just the name Too Tall, he just became my guy. And for whatever reason, 72 just looks good on a jersey.
Right, it just does. Your eyes just go towards it.
Yeah, right. It's like one of those numbers that it just looks like it belongs on a football jersey, like 56. 72. Like those numbers just belong on the football jersey. And then I just loved watching. I tried to model my game after Ed Too Tall Jones had long arms and tall like he was. So the swim move that he was good at, I tried to use. I tried to always use my arms to reach to keep people away from me. And then honestly, God, like I love love isn't even a strong enough word to talk about how much the Cowboys are my team. I had this one sweatshirt that had the Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt, and one day I just made a mistake and played some pickup football in it, and one of my buddies ripped it when he tackled me.
Oh no!
That fight happened.
I'm sure you're like, oh no, like no. You had to
my Dallas Cowboys jersey, And so, and my dad was a back then watching Redskins, but watching football team. He was their fan, and so we would have these.
How did that work in the house?
Yeah, it was tough. It was really, and he would talk trash to me when the Cowboys lost, and I'd cry all the time, and I was just a Cowboy fan. And then when Jerry Jones came and the way he got, that Tom Landry found out he was no longer the coach, that broke my heart. Because Tom Landry was my dude with his cool suit on and his hat. Like coaches don't dress like that anymore.
I know.
It's just such a classy, cool way to do it, And so then that's when I slowly started to not be a fan of the Cowboys until
give us this right. We want the deets.
Until the draft came, and so the year I was getting drafted, I get this call the morning of the draft.
Wow.
And it's the Dallas Cowboys, and they're like, "Hey, we have this representative that we want this dude to come and watch the draft with you." And I was just like, and I stayed at my apartment. I didn't go to like New York. So I called my agent. I'm like, "Hey, like the Cowboys want some dude to watch the draft with me. Should I say yeah?" And he says, "Oh yeah." And so I called him back. No, yeah, sure. This dude must have been sitting right outside my apartment. As soon as I hung the phone up, boom, 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 boom. He knocked on the door. It was like it came in. And so they had the 15th and the 17th pick, I think, in the first round. And so they wanted to trade up to draft me. So then obviously I became a fan in that moment. And because I'm just like, oh,
wow, you're ready.
The Cowboys on the so every time a team would call me, because after the first two picks that were already kind of determined, all the teams would call me. So I'd have to give the phone to him, and they were trying to figure out how to negotiate the trade up, but nobody would trade up with them. And so I ended up with Seattle. But in that short moment, though, I was ready to come.
You were ready to
become a Cowboy fan all over again. I'm like, where's my Cowboy stuff? Like, I'm ready to go. So,
like, Dad, see, I spoke it into existence. All my rooting for them finally paid off. Wow. All right. So what happened so what happened with the representative when it didn't happen? He just left the apartment, right?
Well, he ate all our food first.
He was leaving with something. If it was not you, it was going to be food.
And then he pieced out. It was because my mom had made a whole bunch of food, and my girlfriend's parents had a bunch of food. I had like my teammates and some of my family was all there. So there was a lot of food going on.
Southern food too, right?
Yes. And this dude took his time. Like, he's like, well, since I'm here, let me just make sure I can
might as well. I got excited, came back with something like we didn't get rain.
Like he was like, hey, put me a plate together and let me get on out of here. He was like, yeah, let me just get a little food, and like while y'all doing that thing, I'm gonna go here and get some food.
Oh my gosh, I love that story, Ray. Oh, okay, Cowboys fans, you almost had Ray Roberts. All right, that's something else they can add to what they proclaim. They proclaim a lot of stuff.
Yes,
so I'm gonna give that to them too. They almost had Ray Roberts. We'll let them say that as they watch this NFL season. And I want to talk about what you're doing now, but we have to talk on your years. Let's talk about first playing in Seattle, right? 10th pick, 1992 NFL draft, Seattle Seahawks. You played 4 seasons with the Seahawks. Let's talk about some of your favorite memories in Seattle.
Honestly, one of my favorite memories is just, and it's weird, but my first year, we went 2-14.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's game, I feel like, especially with all the coverage that you have now and the outlets, like we talked about earlier, social media stuff, it would be difficult to be on a team that's 2-14 and not have chaos in the locker.
Oh, yeah.
Our defense was one of the top 10 defenses in the league that year.
Wow.
Our offense only averaged about 8 points a game.
Oof.
Our defense was so good. If we had averaged 16 points a game, we probably would have made it to the playoffs.
Right. You would have been fine.
Right. But our team was super tight. Like offense and defense, like we still hung out together. It didn't matter how bad we played the defense. Like, man, we're going to get you the ball back, give you another chance. Like they were always encouraging, supporting, Cortez Kennedy, Eugene Robinson, had some really good football players. And, but they did it. It just kind of like made me want to be a Seahawk forever. So it was really hard to leave here as a free agent just because of that kind of tight-knit family team thing that you just didn't expect in the NFL, because sometimes just people have their own agendas and stuff. But it was a super, super tight team. And then competition-wise, I just loved playing against the Raiders. Like I got into a fight every single time. Every single time I played the Raiders, and got kicked out of like a couple games playing against them, and just loved going to the Coliseum or when they were in Oakland, going down and playing them. It's just something about that team that just brought out like just this different type of animal in me. And then
you had to go get the Raiders.
And then my rookie year, I played against 10, 12 players who averaged double-digit sacks for their careers, and they were all multiple Pro Bowl players. So it was baptism by fire. Like, so I didn't have time to kind of ease myself into some easy opponents. It was Derek Thomas and Lawrence Taylor and Leslie O'Neal and Andre Tippett and Howie Long. And it's like, it was some dogs. You know what I'm saying?
Put it in a nice way.
So every week it was just like, we had this dude, Reggie McKenzie, who blocked for O.J. Simpson back in the day. And he would be like, hey, Ray, now you think this dude this week was bad. Wait till you see the guy next week. And I was just like, Reggie,
wait.
seeing that. Like, don't tell me that again, dude. You're going to make me lose before the game even starts. And so I was just like, just stay away from me, dude. But yeah, so my rookie year was like really memorable, not because of the wins, but just because of the challenge and because of the camaraderie of the locker room. So really cool year. And then your dream is coming true in that moment. You're
living out your dream and playing in the National Football League.
Yeah, so like it's really hard to overcome that or outdo that.
Oh my gosh. All right. So we go from Seattle, even though you said you can outdo it. Then let's talk about the Lions. And you've done a lot with the Lions, voted by your teammates to serve as a team captain 4 out of the 5 seasons you spent with the Lions. And talking about something that you helped to do, you helped pave the way for a guy that we know pretty well in the league, Barry Sanders. Let's talk about playing with the Detroit Lions and that transition.
Yeah, it was hard because, like I said, I just thought I was going to be a Seahawk for life, and I wanted to be.
And all of a sudden.
And but I had blown my ankle up, and the surgery was okay, and it didn't seem like I was going to be able to be as mobile as I once was, and so the Seahawks kind of didn't want to offer me a contract after I was a free agent, so I had to find another team, and so Detroit became interesting because at the time there was Herman Moore there that I played with at UVA. He and I were fresh year players together at UVA. There's a guy named Greg Jeffries, defensive back that was from UVA. Don Mikowski, the backup quarterback was from UVA. There's like 2 or 3 other dudes from UVA there. And so it just made it, when I went and talked with Herman and just felt like I was back in the UVA locker room, that became the team I chose. And then, having watched Barry, but not really closely at the time, then that just became a whole like bonus to it. This dude was just incredible. You know what I'm saying? Like just watching how he works and how he plays and just how cool and calm and collected he is. And he's not one of those dudes that's putting himself out front all the time. It's just the way he carried himself was just like unbelievable for a dude that could have probably done and said anything he wanted and nobody would have said anything about it. But and so just that type of class was pretty awesome. And then obviously, we went to the playoffs a couple times, so which I never got to do in Seattle. So that all that stuff was great. And then, blocking for Barry for the 2,000-yard season. I don't know if people know, but we started the first 2 games. We only had 53 yards rushing. Barry had 53 yards rushing.
Wow.
And so we had this meeting with myself, Herman, the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, running backs. And so they were like, man, like, what are your guys' ideas? And I said, you know what we should do? We should give the ball to Barry until his freaking shoes fall off. We should have 15 oxygen tanks on the sideline. Run this dude to death. And I was like, it's not my pay grade to tell you what to do, but I'm just saying, like, that's what I would do. And then from that point forward, we rushed for 2,000 yards in 14 games. And so, O.J. Simpson had rushed for 2,000 yards in 14 games. So people would always say, like, well, these other guys did it in 16 games. We rushed for 2,053 yards that season.
Wow.
And so after a 53-yard start in 2 games, we rushed for exactly 2,000 yards in 14 games. And so that was pretty awesome just to be able to do that for Barry, knowing that, you know, for him, he didn't care. He just wanted to win, get to the Super Bowl. He wasn't even tracking it. Like Barry wasn't a dude. It was just like, hey, like how many more yards I need?
Into the stats, right?
Yeah, we would go to him and go, okay, B, we need to get like 120 yards so we can get back on track. So we're gonna be, and he's just like, okay, man, like whatever, you know. And so it was pretty awesome that we're able to do it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Now you're making us just relive too much football greatness. And see, me and you can talk football all day. Right?
All day.
I want to talk about what you're doing today because you transitioned from life off the football field to doing amazing things, or life on the football field to now doing amazing things off the football field. So let's now talk about what you're doing with Special Olympics. And you're not new to Special Olympics. I know you served as an ambassador for the Special Olympics USA Games in Seattle in 2017. And that was actually when you got recruited, right, to join the organization full-time by the president and managing director of Special Olympics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing some work with a program here in Seattle called Rainier Scholars, which is an academic and college enrichment program for low-income kids of color who are first-generation college candidates. And so they came to me, the Special Olympics organizing committee, the games organizing committee, and said, hey, can you be an ambassador? You're on the radio and you're doing all these different things so you can kind of spread the message, help us do some fundraising. And so I went to one of our first press conferences, and there were some other folks like ambassadors speaking. And I'm just like, man, I feel like I can deliver the message better. And so I went to the organizing committee and like, hey, like next time you'll need someone to talk about this stuff, let me do it. And, and so then because I had done some work at Microsoft in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and so I had a better understanding of what inclusion is. And so as I was going around, you know, doing these talks and fundraising, one day the Mark Edenson, the managing director, came and said, hey, man, do you like the work you're doing? I'm like, oh yeah, I work for Rainier Scholars. Like I'm saying all this stuff, and then in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, this dude isn't asking you this for that reason. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm like, so like, why do you want to know? He goes, oh well, we have this like great position that I think that you could, you know, you'd be great at. We're trying to, you know, get our Unified Champion Schools program into the cities and urban school districts and things, and we don't really have a strategy for it, and we think you'd be a great person for it. And so I had never heard of Unified Champion Schools before. I knew of Special Olympics, but I didn't know what Unified Champion Schools was.
And let's make sure we tell our audience what those are. I want to make sure they're understanding too.
Yeah, so you know, Special Olympics is what you think of Special Olympics. It's an organization that uses sports to drive inclusion and create opportunities for persons with intellectual disabilities to experience joy and competition and friendship and all those things. And Unified Champion Schools takes that concept, and it's a three-pronged concept that we take into the schools to help drive those same things: inclusion, belonging, meaningful relationships, success, you know, athletically and academically and socially, emotionally. And there's three components to it: unified sports, where we have students with and without intellectual disabilities on the same teams. Inclusive youth leadership, where we have that same concept, but it's with clubs or teams within the so it can be like the student council, or there's one school that has like they call like peacekeepers, like so it can be something like that. And then whole school engagement, where we're bringing the whole school is acknowledging the abilities of the athletes. And so that can be fans in the stands, or a field day where we're all participating in the different drills and skills and things all together. So it's a three-pronged three-component system that we do specifically in schools. And so my job is to get that strategy, the Unified Champion School strategy, into our urban city school districts all over the country.
And they need to be. I mean, what you just described, why wouldn't you want that? And I think you're right. The message is inclusion, right? And I think it's like just making sure that we're all getting a chance, right? That's all everybody wants. When you come to this world, everybody just wants a chance to be included, be their best selves, and be able to just be around people. And this is why I love that you're doing this work, right? It's needed work. I know you've been doing this since July 2017. You work for Special Olympics as the director of Unified Champion Schools for urban development. And then you've also, with Special Olympics, you've done so much. You've also served as an ambassador for the 2018 USA Special Olympic Games. But tell us, our listening audience, how can they help with this initiative? How do they help these Unified Champion City Schools initiatives? How can we get these in our area if they're not already, Ray?
Yeah, well, every state has its own state Special Olympics program. So whether you're in, Special Olympics DC or Special Olympics North Carolina, Special Olympics Arizona, you can always reach out to their programs. There's always space for volunteer work. There's a space for collaborations with other like-minded organizations in the community or partnerships. We can always use, space, funding, people, different types of all those different types of resources. With our unified, back in October of last year, we announced our Unified Champion City Schools initiative. And so that's taken the work that we're already doing in our urban and city schools, and we're just elevating all of it. So really raising the awareness in the communities, amplifying the voice and the abilities of our athletes, and then also driving more implementation in the schools and school districts. So if you're a school official, like, man, let us come in and tell you what we do and how we do it and how it improves school climate and student outcomes and things like that. If you're a community person and you want to find real meaningful opportunities for your employees to engage in, great place to volunteer and offer resources to, be a coach, help set up events, help fundraise, all those different kinds, bring all your skill sets to help a population of folks that are probably the most marginalized population that we have in our society. So, and even speaking at that, like when I first took this job, I told Andrea Khan, our director and boss, I said, so you're telling me that there is a female in an underrepresented school district with intellectual disabilities, and they don't have access to these outcomes? And she said, yes. And I said, well, if you will hire me, my one job will be to get these resources to that female, because otherwise she has no chance. Like, that's a quadruple whammy. She's a female, she's of color, she has an intellectual disability, and she's in an underrepresented situation. And so that's what drives me every day. Like, I get up and I'm like, I'm gonna get this work to that one person. Yeah. And so that's what we try to do with our initiative. We have we have 26 state programs that are representing 30 cities across the country, and some of those cities are Philadelphia, New York, Atlanta, DC. Like, we have about 30 programs. 11 of those programs are what we're calling our tier 1 programs that we're giving like the most attention to, and the others we're preparing to get to that level. But we are looking to like really increase the numbers across the board of our participation, of our school implementation.
And we're going to help get those numbers up, right?
Yeah. So it's I can go on and on and on and on and on.
No, I mean, I think this is a great initiative. And I want to point out Joseph Lee, a faithful viewer of the show, also the preacher man. He wants to get in the Virginia Tidewater area. Where does he go, Ray? Does he just contact Special Olympics Virginia? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would contact Special Olympics Virginia directly and talk. And they have, I think, on our list for the initiative, they're working in Richmond. But we have honestly been trying to get into Norfolk, the area, the 757 Tidewater area. So we've been trying to get schools in that area. And so sometimes it's hard if you don't have like a champion in that school or in that community that's really driving it. So if you're that person and you can you have some connection, some influence, whether you're a parent or a teacher or community advocate or whatever, and can help us drive that message to the schools, then we will bring with you all the resources, all the information. We have the funding. We have, it's pretty much like, you just have to, if you find the people that want to do it, we have everything that allows them to do it. And it's a really easy program to put together and get people on board. So reach out to Special Olympics Virginia, and just say, hey, like, I want to bring. I was just in Seattle here. I went out to like Whidbey Island here, which is where a lot of our military folks are. And I spoke at an event there, and there were some teachers that came up and said, hey, like, we don't have that in our schools.
Right. You want it.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, then we're on it. And so they're already connected to, Special Olympics Washington, and trying to see what we can do to get our programming out there. So it can be that easy to, to kind of get it going.
I got you, Joseph. I'll make sure you pin the information. See, we listen on the show. That's why we do a live show, right? Because you never know where that information is going to go to. And such an important initiative. And just to keep talking about these unified schools, I want to make sure people understand Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools are nearly 8,000 schools and over 2,770 school districts in 49 United States. And the District of Columbia is right here in DC area, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. So talk about just big impact that you all are making through these schools. But currently 26% of Unified Champion schools are in urban school districts, but only 7% our urban schools of the highest needs. This is what Ray is talking about. We want to make sure that we're getting these in schools that need them. And so this is why I wanted Ray on the show, to push this initiative, to push this message. He said it, get in contact with your local Special Olympics. If you're hearing this and you're like, wait, we want this to spread. And Ray talked about the good work that these schools do, because they're helping to empower youth leaders, right? Inform educators and support caregivers and community leaders. And you can help become an influence of change. All right. These schools are great, Ray. And just your passion for this, and just how you're continuing to not make an impact just on the football field, but now make an impact off the football field through the schooling and through our next generation, right? Because me and you won't be here forever. It's pouring to these young people so that they can be their best selves, so they can be their greatest selves, and so on, because we want this to continue. And I think what you touched on earlier, it's about giving back, right? Yes. I think, of course, at the end of the day, we can't, even though you have so many great awards, Ray, and we're going to remember you for forever, especially in football, it's like what you can leave, right? When you leave this earth. And I think that's what you're doing now. You're leaving so many good feelings and thoughts, and you're helping so many students through this. So I want to thank you, Ray.
Oh, thank you. Well, honestly, when you talked about, my upbringing, when I'm doing this work, I feel like I'm channeling my dad. Like, honestly, like my dad, like I said, dad, we didn't have anything. My dad was a janitor, never even graduated high school. I think his furthest education was like 8th grade. But my dad's legacy in my community is gigantic, because my dad just gave everything. There was nobody that he didn't think he was, too big to help, or even if it was, too low to help. My dad helped doctors to little old ladies at
everyone, right?
Teachers, you know what I'm saying? So that's just kind of how I operate. And I think those things are important in our culture and in our life, is that, no matter what your situation is, most times you can find a way to help another person. And when you help someone else, you're helping yourself, and so,
and you're learning about yourself.
Absolutely. And you have no idea what gift that you're minimizing, that by using it, you could be maximizing somebody else's life. And so, so that's the way I kind of look at it. And so this opportunity to work with, with Special Olympics is something that I really felt like I was preparing my whole life to do. Like, so football, getting into the NFL was not the final destination. That was just another step in the process. Because now it gives me access to do this kind of stuff, to spread our message more. I get asked to speak at a bunch of different things. So because of the football thing gets me in the door, but then I close them with the Special Olympics stuff.
And they're like, whoa, wow.
And so I really do, like, sometimes, honestly, like sometimes when I'm going into these schools, or I'm talking with the kids, or I'm talking with the school administrators, I feel as if I'm looking through the eyes of my dad, because I know that this is the type of stuff that my dad just did. And it wasn't like effort to do it, and it wasn't like a requirement to do it, or mandatory to do it. That's just who my dad was. And so that's just kind of who I am.
Oh, Ray, again, just such a blast and an honor and a privilege to have you on again. Check out Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools. If you want the stats, and schools that have implemented this program, 92% of educators had reported reduced bullying, reduced teasing, and offensive language among students. Get that, 92% of schools said reduce bullying and teasing. And we're living in a world, unfortunately, where we're seeing suicide rates up, and just so much with students that they're battling. You look at the school violence and stuff, and just so much that students are going through. So the fact that we have those numbers, it's truly incredible. And then 98% of teachers involved said that participation in this program has increased confidence of students with disabilities. That's huge. You can't put a price on confidence, right? So again, just thank you for your work. Thank you, Special Olympics. This is why, Ray, I've so enjoyed working so closely with Special Olympics and pushing their message. It's one that needs to be spread. And I hope all my viewers and listeners got information on this. Please, 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 because there's schools in every community. Let's make sure that we're bringing this in our communities if it's not there already. Ray, I have to end with a funny one from this comment from Jamel Cutler. Going back to your Cowboys story, are we sure the dude worked for the Cowboys? He was on his Tupac and Poetic Justice at the family reunion vibe. That comment.
Yes, he was. It was just, I mean, and he was a big dude too. So like, I think once the deal didn't go down, I think his eyes were just on the food from the very beginning.
I don't blame him though. If I go somewhere, I gotta leave with something. All right, I made this drive out. I was at dude's house, so we fed him well. Right? Again, such a pleasure to have you on. Any last words for the listening audience?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that with the pandemic and the way folks have been isolated, because of it, the work that we're doing with Special Olympics is even more important because, some of our athletes are isolated to begin with. And so then with the pandemic and all the COVID protocols and things makes it even tougher. So, find a way to engage your local Special Olympics program, find a way to engage the program that is going on in the schools. I promise you, if you show up and say that you have something offered, you're not going to get turned away because we can use it all. And it's all to benefit these athletes and young people that absolutely need it. They need our support. I don't buy into this idea that young people today are lazy and don't care and don't want to do anything, because I don't see that in the schools and things I'm going in and out of. And so just support them, encourage them, empower them, and then give them space to do what they do. And that's what our program emphasizes as well. So find a way to take whatever gifts and talents that you have to help some other folks that are in need of them.
Take whatever gifts and talents you have to help some other folks in need. Drops mic, boom. I don't even need an ending now, right? You just ended it for me. The show is complete. The show is done. Ray Roberts, thank you so much for joining me live. We hope to keep in contact and in touch. And I will make sure for everyone listening, if you want that information, that we get it out to you again about pushing these schools, right? Have a great day. Fear the turtle. Go Terps.
It was great jumping on with you and just reading about you and your career and how you've gotten to where you are and the things that you're doing is pretty awesome. And so any way that I can support you, if you want to know what's happening on this side of the world in football, to go to reporting or what have you, just let me know. And when I'm in DC, I'll see if I can, we can grab lunch or I can jump on your show.
Oh, again. Ray, I would love that. I'm going to take you to get some chicken wings, some mumbo sauce. Did y'all do that?
Oh, yes, we did.
Listen to some go-go music, right? So you let me know in DC, and I'll have to let you know when I'm out that way in Washington. But I look forward
thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you so much. Keep in contact, y'all. If you want to learn more about Ray, he's on social media. Ray, where can they follow you on social media?
Well, I'm mostly just on Twitter at Big Ray Roberts.
I noticed that. Tell the kids to get you on Instagram. Kids, you got 3. one of the 3 got to get you on Instagram. All right, Ray?
Well, I kind of took myself off of some of it just for my own well-being because if you follow me enough, you'll know that I love arguing, debating. And so I had to kind of dial myself back a little bit. So I just kind of stuck to Twitter.
All right, Reagan, thank you so much. But follow him on Twitter. Look, he's telling y'all he likes to talk trash. So good, give it to him. Give it to him game days. We've got a big Sunday of football tomorrow. We'll be back actually this Tuesday coming up at 3. We're doing 3 p.m. Eastern time show. So a special show. We'll have Andre Reed. All right, y'all. So be sure to tune into that show. Tuesday, we're staying with football. We'll talk about all the great matchups from today and also Monday Night Football. And hopefully Monday Night Football delivers again. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sunday night, Monday night. Well, really Sunday night, because that Chiefs-Ravens game, Ray, that was fun.
It was fun. And I mean, it was.
Your Lions have the Ravens coming up.
It was good to see, Lamar Jackson, really, exercising some of those demons about not being able to beat Patrick Mahomes and his style of football and all that kind of stuff. And just really, I just love all of the young players and young quarterbacks that are doing great things. And maybe we give the quarterbacks too much credit when they win and too much fault when they lose. But I think the league is in a very good position right now with a lot of the young players that they have in it.
It's exciting. It's an exciting time. Ray, who wins? Ravens or Lions coming up this Sunday?
Man, I really want my Lions to win. They're playing really, really hard. I just don't know that they have the talent to get over the top. And the Ravens, even with all their injuries,
and they had more, Ray. They have a COVID, 4 players.
Yeah, they had that last year too. But their brand of football travels well, whether it's indoors, outdoors, on the road, at home, bad weather, great weather. So they're going to always have a chance to win. I think they can just I think they can overwhelm teams with their running attack, and I think that'll happen in Detroit.
Yeah, and look at me, Lamar continues to be one of the leading rushers in the league. That just tells you something. You got 3 good running backs, even after all yours went out, and then you have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Well, again, we're looking forward to football Sunday. Enjoy your family. Stay safe, Ray. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. I will see you all Tuesday. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks. Bye. And also a special thanks to my team. And of course, again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Back Tuesday, we've got Andre coming on. We're talking lots more football. Bring your questions, and I'll see you all then. Have a great one. Bye, guys.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio now offers official Kelsey Nicole Nelson apparel in a variety of styles for men and women. Fashionable shirts, leggings, hats, jackets, and more. Order now and get 15% off and free shipping. Just enter promo code KNN. Get your Listen In with KNN wearables today. And check out Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio with Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Nelson. I'm a lover of all sports, and I hope you are too. So I'm excited to be launching my all-new show, Listen In with KNN.